This whole situation started with one post. And now, people are questioning everything. Fans began noticing suspicious activity linked to Cardi B, but not directly from her. Instead, it came from someone closely connected, posting messages that immediately raised eyebrows. One post read like a joke, but didn't feel like one. Texted my wife, she gone. Come over now. At first, it looked like typical internet trolling. But then came another post, and this one made things worse. References to cheating, hints at relationships outside the public eye, and language that felt way too specific to ignore. And that's when fans started connecting the dots. Because this wasn't random. It looked intentional. Now, here's where it gets more complicated. People began asking, was this just trolling? Or was it actually a confession? And knowing Cardi B's history, especially how she's reacted to situations like this before, it immediately turned into something bigger than just jokes online. Because if there's one thing people know, it's that this kind of situation never stays quiet for long. But while that situation was building, something else was happening at the same time. And this one involved some of the biggest names in music. A list was released ranking the greatest living American songwriters. Sounds simple, right? But the reaction, anything but simple, because some names were there, and others were completely missing. Artists like Nicki Minaj were nowhere to be found. And that immediately raised questions. How do you create a list like that and leave out some of the most influential artists in the industry? Fans didn't hold back. They started calling it out. And then things escalated even further when comments surfaced that many people interpreted as indirect shade toward current artists making younger music. That's when the conversation shifted from criticism to accusations. Some people believe this wasn't just a random list. They think it was strategic, that certain artists were intentionally excluded. And once that idea started spreading, it became impossible to ignore. Because in the music industry, timing is everything. And this all happened right as major artists were preparing new releases, which made people wonder, was this just coincidence? Or was something else going on behind the scenes? And just when things couldn't get more chaotic, another situation entered the conversation. This time involving Megan Thee Stallion. Reports started circulating that she might be considering legal action against Klay Thompson. And the reason? Emotional distress. Now that alone is enough to grab attention. But when people started looking deeper, the situation became even more complicated. There were claims about emotional strain, stress, and how the relationship may have impacted her personally and professionally. Some fans supported her. Others weren't convinced. Because legally, cases like this aren't easy to prove, especially without a marriage or formal partnership involved. But regardless of whether anything actually happens in court, the damage to public perception is already happening. Because now it's not just about the relationship. It's about what people believe happened behind the scenes. And that's what keeps this story alive. And then there's another layer to all of this. Power. Because when it comes to Rihanna, the conversation shifts completely. There have been rumors, unconfirmed, but widely discussed, that if anything serious ever happened in her relationship, the consequences wouldn't just be personal. They would be career-defining. And that's what makes this different. Because at a certain level, relationships aren't just private anymore. They're connected to business, influence, and reputation. And when someone has that much power, even rumors can have impact. At first, all of these situations seem separate. Different people, different stories, different drama. But when you step back, there's a pattern. Reputation, power, perception. Because in every situation, the real story isn't just what happened. It's how people interpret what happened. And once that interpretation spreads, it becomes its own reality. That's why these stories don't fade. They evolve, they grow, and they keep people watching. So now the real question is, which of these stories is actually real, and which ones are just being shaped by what people want to believe?